In 2016, the Gregg Museum of Art and Design acquired a collection of nearly 400 hand fans and other materials collected by Emma Hanford Smith of Washington, D.C. The collection was gifted to the museum by Rosemary H. Claudy in loving memory of her husband, Nicholas Hanford Claudy, the grandson of Emma Hanford Smith. Emma Hanford Smith was born in 1866 in Scottsville, New York, to parents William Hayes Hanford Jr. and Abby Lewis Pixley Hanford. She and her family moved from New York to Washington, D.C. when she was a young girl. Emma met her husband, Dr. Hugh McCormick Smith, in 1882 when they were both attending Central High School in Washington, D.C. Smith, a famed ichthyologist, graduated from Central High School in 1884 and began to work in the bird department of the United States National Museum under curator of birds Robert Ridgway. In 1886, Smith joined the U.S. Fish Commission. He continued his education first at Georgetown University in Washington, where he received his Doctor of Medicine in 1888. The pair were married on March 12, 1889. Emma and Hugh had 2 daughters. The eldest, Alice Hanford Smith Cowdery, was born in 1892, and the youngest, Janet Elizabeth Smith Claudy, was born 13 years later in 1905. Dr. Hugh McCormick Smith had an illustrious career that played a significant role in Emma amassing her fan collection over many years. He published extensively in herpetology and ichthyology in the United States and Asia, including his 453-page publication, Fishes of North Carolina. He also traveled to 22 countries and held many positions during his lifetime as the Associate Curator in Zoology at the Smithsonian, Commissioner of Fishers with the U.S. Bureau of Fisheries, and Deputy Commissioner at Woods Hole Marine Biological Laboratory in Massachusetts. He also worked as the advisor in fisheries under 3 different kings of Siam, now Thailand, where he lived from 1923 to 1935 during a 10-year study of native fishes in the country. Emma and her daughters would often join her husband on his research trips around the world. In the summer of 1924, when Dr. Smith worked for the King of Siam, Emma and her younger daughter Janet joined her husband in East Asia for a period of time, taking the SS Wilson from San Francisco to Honolulu before continuing on to the port of Hong Kong aboard the SS President Lincoln. I like to think of Emma's collection as a lens through which we can displace real time. Susan Pierce, Professor Emeritus of Museum Studies at the University of Leicester, divides the practice of collecting into 3 categories: systematic, fetishism, and souvenir collecting. Systematics is the construction of a collection of objects in order to represent an ideology. Fetishism is the removal of objects from their historical and cultural context and their redefinition in terms of the collector. And souvenir collecting happens when the objects are prized for their power to carry the past into the future. Emma Hanford Smith's collection can be classified as the latter. With this group of objects, that includes the fans themselves, cataloged index cards, numbered tags, ephemera, letters, books, and other materials, Emma Hanford Smith assembled a coherent narrative of the past. Not a wholly accurate past, but a glimpse into her experiences, social circles, and interests. Emma kept a written record of her acquisitions. Each fan comes with its accompanying index card and number. These numbers correspond with the tags on the fans themselves. Sometimes, the cards include a small hand drawing of the fan in question, but all include information about the object's origin, by whom it was collected, and the date in which it was made or acquired, if available. Whether she intended it or not, this collection of fans is now inextricable from her identity. As a woman who lived between the 19th and 20th centuries, little information remains about her life independent from her husband and his career. Even her fan collection is intertwined with his career, travels, and network of colleagues around the globe. It is safe to assume that collecting and systematically cataloging fans was a large part of Emma's identity, and not simply a hobby, just as cataloging fish and other animals was for her husband. Dr. Smith took her interests in fans seriously. Not only did he have a custom wooden crate built to house her fan collection, but he also utilized his social and professional network to acquire fans for Emma from around the world. Letters to Dr. Smith from colleagues on official stationery tell us that he sent out requests to friends and acquaintances, most of whom were also naturalists and scientists, to acquire fans for Emma's collection. One example is a letter dated March 16, 1920, from Albert Spear Hitchcock, American botanist and agrostologist, who, while on a research trip in British Guyana, acquired 4 fans for Emma, now in the Gregg Museum's collection. He responded, "In accordance with your request, I tried to get fans for you while in British Guyana. I regret to say that I succeeded in getting only 4 sorts, all the kinds that I saw exhibited. I should be glad to have you look at them sometime and see if they are of any value to you. Very truly yours, A.S. Hitchcock." Another letter to Dr. Smith regarding fans comes from well-known adventurer, explorer, and naturalist Roy Chapman Andrews. Andrews joined Smith on the USS Albatross when Smith was the director of an expedition to the Philippines between 1907 and 1910. Roy Andrews wrote, "Dear Dr. Smith, on my last trip to Korea, I remembered that Mrs. Smith was making a collection of fans. Several times I found pretty fans and took a great deal of pleasure in making a small collection for her. I am sending these under separate cover to you, and should be glad if you would present them to her with my compliments. All the fans are of native workmanship and are ticketed with their history. Very sincerely yours, Roy C. Andrews." In all, Andrews gave Emma 9 screen fans he acquired from Korea, Mongolia, Japan, and China while on a whaling expedition between 1911 and 1912. Andrews later went on to become the director of the American Museum of Natural History. He is believed by many to be the inspiration for the well-loved character Indiana Jones. Presumably, the fan that began Emma's collection is an 18th century folding fan from England or France. This fan, labeled number 1, was a gift from Emma's mother. The object card tells us that Emma's mother acquired this fan in 1870, when Emma was about 4 or 5 years old. The sticks and guards of the fan are ornately painted with black lacquer and gold decorated with miniature paintings of flowers and birds. One side of the fan features 3 vignettes of different social scenes where men and women intermingle, socialize, and play games. Between these scenes, the fan is decorated with elaborate designs that were hot stamped onto the fan leaf in gold on embossed purple paper. The first scene, on the left side of the fan, shows a seated man in a red coat, his right arm gesturing at the figures in front of him that are cut off by the fan's edge. Beside him is a woman in a pink and red dress, who seems to look at the figures in front. They both wear powdered white wigs. The central image on this side of the fan features 3 women in brightly colored dresses. 2 are seated and seem to be engaged in a game of chess, played on an ornately carved table. The third stands behind the woman on the left to observe the game. The third scene, on the right side of the fan, includes 2 women and a man seated at a table together. The woman in the purple dress in the center raises a glass with the man in the red coat. The second woman watches on with a smile on her face. They appear to be finished with their meal. When we turn the fan over, the shiny purple paper stands out, as do the hot stamped designs in gold. One vignette is framed in the center of the fan leaf. This illustration features a woman seated on a bright red-orange chair. A man to her right holds his left hand to his chest as he greets her with interest. Fans in 18th century Europe were often used to flirt, so perhaps these scenes imply this fan's purpose. A more modern fan in Emma's collection is number 279, a mechanical fan made by the brand Carlo in Germany around 1920. This pinwheel-type brise pocket fan features 3 celluloid blades that simulate tortoiseshell, a metal push-button, and a mirror on the reverse side. Dr. Hugh McCormick Smith acquired this fan for Emma from Mrs. M. G. Maynard of India in 1924 during his time in Thailand. When not in use, the blades fold together on top of each other for safekeeping in one's handbag. When the side button is pushed in repeatedly, a mechanism inside the small fan spins the blades. It's definitely one of the more efficient fans in the collection. Another fan made in the 1920s is this painted paper and sandalwood folding fan made in Spain. The fan was acquired by Dr. Smith for Emma while in Montevideo, Uruguay in 1922. The fan guard is decorated with a thin layer of abalone shell. It features a full-length painting of a red-haired young woman that continues from the paper leaf to the wooden sticks below. Her right hand gracefully holds a piece of ribbon that falls from the hat atop her head. Her skirt is decorated with black textured stripes and red tassels or pom-poms on a light greenish-blue fabric. At the waist and down the front of her skirt appear to be red flowers. The background design of the fan may be more impressive than the figure in the center. Light purple stripes move upward to the right on the fan's front, from the wood to the paper. Intricate lines are painted in black that almost create the impression of a topographical map across the tiny folds of the fan. There are numerous examples of fans from Thailand in Emma's collection, this being one of the most intricate. This cutout screen fan, number 305, was collected in Bangkok, Thailand in 1932. A figure from the Ramayana, one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India, features prominently as a hand-painted pink figure. The Ramayana narrates the life of Rama, a legendary prince of Ayodhya city in the kingdom of Kosala. The figure shown here is possibly Nila, the commander-in-chief of the monkey army under the monkey king Sugriva. The figure's facial features, use of a sword, and opposable feet lend to this interpretation. The Ramayana is one of the largest ancient epics in world literature. It consists of nearly 24,000 verses. Scholars' estimates for the earliest stage of the text range from the 7th to 4th centuries BCE, with later stages extending up to the 3rd century CE. This is an example of a cockade fan, a type of fan that opens to create a full circle. It comes from Vienna, Austria. In this case, the fan opens to reveal the shape of a pansy. It is made with purple fabric that is hand-painted with yellow, green, and orange to mimic the colors and patterns of the flower. Emma's husband collected this fan for her in 1905 in Vienna, Austria. Emma assigned this fan the number 67 and described it as folding around a center, heavy paper, pansy shape, and colors. She later changed her description to describe the material as cloth rather than heavy paper. When closed, the folds of the fan stay close together between the flat wooden sticks, revealing the uneven lengths of the fan's edges. One of the less functionally practical fans in this collection is this fan collected in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, by Mr. E.A. Julian in 1906. The bird was identified by NC State ornithology student Shiloh Felton as a lilac-breasted roller, with breast feathers that are modified either naturally from decay, fading, or the life stage of the bird, or artificially with dye. The brown patches on the mantle and scapulars of the bird are characteristic of this species. The tail is also characteristic of the lilac-breasted rollers, cut straight across with two long and dark tail feathers on either side. The most interesting thing is that this is an East African bird, and the national bird of Kenya. It does not come from the Amazon jungle, which means the bird was either brought to Rio de Janeiro as a pet before it was immortalized as a fan there, or that the fan was a trade item from Africa before it was collected in Brazil in 1906. No matter where the fan was made, it was sure to be a conversation starter for whomever used it as an accessory. After a long and successful life and career, Dr. Hugh McCormick Smith died in 1941. As an aging Emma Hanford Smith needed more care, she moved to live with her daughter Janet in Georgetown, bringing her fans with her. She lived there until her death in 1946. The fans remained in the Claudy house in Georgetown until 2012, when Rosemary Claudy moved them with her to North Carolina, where she now resides. The Gregg Museum would like to thank Rosemary H. Claudy, Margaret Hahn, and Howard Park for sharing their stories about Emma Hanford Smith, Dr. Hugh McCormick Smith, and their family.